Hello, I'm here to help you understand your document about common challenges in supply chain management. Let's work through this material together. The world we live in now means constant change. Global pandemics, port closures, and geopolitical conflicts are no longer rare. They are just part of the daily reality for anyone managing a supply chain. Disruption is truly the new normal. These aren't just isolated problems. A factory stopping in one country can quickly lead to an inventory shortage somewhere else. A sudden jump in customer demand can create a massive logistics nightmare. These challenges often result in forecasts that are wrong, delayed shipments, and unhappy customers. It can feel like you're always trying to put out fires. Your document is a practical guide. It breaks down the most common supply chain challenges into easy to understand pieces. We will look at why they happen and give you simple frameworks to build resilience. We'll start with the demand forecasting puzzle. Now, let's talk about the demand forecasting puzzle. The main problem with forecasting is simple. Most models use old sales data to try and guess the future. This worked fine when the future looked a lot like the past. But things are different now. Customer behavior changes very quickly. New competitors can appear overnight. Global events can change your entire market in just a week. Think about a company that sold office furniture. For 10 years, their sales forecasts were almost perfect. They knew exactly how many desks and chairs to make. Then, the sudden global shift to remote work happened. Their old sales data became useless. Demand for home office furniture shot up, while demand for big corporate orders disappeared. Their old forecasting model could not see this coming. As your document states, why yesterday's data fails us today is because the future no longer looks like the past. As you can see in this infographic, there are key reasons why traditional forecasting is not enough today. We have unreliable past data because markets are constantly shifting, new competitors are always emerging, and unpredictable global events throw everything off. So relying only on historical sales data for forecasting is a major risk in today's volatile market. Experts tell us that modern supply chain management requires forward-looking data and predictive analytics, not just looking in the rearview mirror. Now, let's look at how even small forecasting errors can create huge problems further down the line. This is called the bullwhip effect. Think of a long whip. A small flick of your wrist makes a huge, uncontrolled wave at the end. The same thing happens in a supply chain. Here's a real-world example from your document. A retailer sees a 10% increase in sales for a popular product. To be safe, they increase their next order from the distributor by 15%. The distributor sees this larger order and, worried about a trend, orders 20% more from the manufacturer. The manufacturer sees a big jump in orders and ramps up production by 30% to build a safety stock. But the initial 10% sales bump was just a short-term fluke. Now, the manufacturer has made far too much product, and all that extra inventory is sitting in warehouses along the supply chain. This means a small forecasting error at the start created a massive overproduction problem at the end. This is particularly important because, as the document highlights, an inaccurate forecast is often the starting point for many other supply chain issues. Now, as you can see in this chart, we visualize the bullwhip effect in action. A seemingly small 10% increase in customer sales at the retail level gets amplified as it moves upstream. The retailer's order jumps to 15%, the distributor's order to 20%, and the manufacturer's production to a significant 30%. This shows how a minor change in demand can lead to huge inventory swings and inefficiencies throughout the supply chain. This makes it clear why understanding and mitigating the bullwhip effect is vital for any business. Let's recap the main points we've covered about demand forecasting. First, relying only on historical sales data for forecasting is a major risk in today's volatile market. Second, the bullwhip effect shows how small forecast errors can amplify into huge inventory problems further up the supply chain. And third, an inaccurate forecast is often the starting point for many other supply chain issues. This is why getting forecasting right, or at least understanding its limitations, is so critical. So, to quickly summarize Lesson 1, we've established that disruption is a constant in modern supply chains, making traditional forecasting methods less reliable. We explored the bullwhip effect, seeing how small demand changes can lead to large issues upstream. In our next lesson, we'll dive into the Inventory Balancing Act and the complexities of the logistics labyrinth. Welcome back. In our previous lesson, we covered the new normal of disruption and the demand forecasting puzzle, including the bullwhip effect. Now we're exploring more core challenges, balancing inventory, navigating the logistics labyrinth, and fixing supplier weak links. The goal here is to detail the risks and high costs linked to both overstocking or just-in-case and understocking or just-in-time inventory approaches. Also, we will break down the primary challenges in modern transportation, like rising costs, lack of visibility, and the complexity of the last mile. Lastly, we will highlight the critical risks embedded in supplier relationships, from relying on just one supplier to poor communication. Let's look at the Inventory Balancing Act. When forecasts are unreliable, it's tempting to hold extra inventory just in case demand suddenly increases. But this safety net is expensive. The cost of excess inventory is more than just the price of the goods. It includes many hidden costs, like your capital being tied up in products instead of being invested, paying for warehouse space, insurance, and the risk of damage, theft, or obsolescence. For technology or seasonal goods, obsolescence can turn a valuable asset into worthless junk in just a few months. Now, the opposite strategy is just in time, which means keeping inventory as low as possible. This approach is very efficient when everything runs smoothly, but it's also very brittle. A lean supply chain has no buffer. A single delayed shipment or supplier issue can directly lead to a stockout. The business impact of a stockout is severe. You lose the immediate sale, damage your brand's reputation, and can lose customer loyalty for good. As your document says, the cost of a stockout is not just one lost sale, but potentially a lifetime of lost business. The challenge is not choosing an extreme, but finding the right inventory balance. Next up is the logistics labyrinth. One of the biggest challenges in logistics is answering a simple question: where is my stuff? Often, once a shipment leaves a warehouse, it enters a visibility black hole. You get no real-time information until it arrives. This lack of visibility causes major problems. Your service team can't answer customers about their orders. Your production planners can't adjust schedules if raw materials are delayed. This creates a chain reaction of delays and frustration. Also, transportation costs have become very unpredictable. Fuel prices change fast. A shortage of truck drivers can limit capacity, driving up rates. Unexpected port congestion can leave ships waiting for weeks, leading to expensive fees. Managing a logistics budget is a constant battle against these unpredictable forces. As you can see in this infographic, key logistics challenges include the visibility gap, where locations are unknown, rising costs due to fuel and labor, and the last mile challenge, which is the most expensive and complicated part of the delivery journey. Customers also have high expectations for fast and free shipping. The last mile of delivery, from the local distribution center to the customer's doorstep, is almost always the most expensive part. Meeting expectations for thousands of individual residential deliveries is a huge operational and financial challenge. Let's turn to the supplier weak link. Many companies rely on a single supplier for important parts to get better prices. This is efficient but very risky. For example, a car company might get a specific microchip from only one factory. If that factory has a fire, flood, or strike, it shuts down. The car company can't get the chip, and its whole production line stops. The supplier's problem has become their own huge problem. Another risk is not knowing enough about your suppliers. You might know your direct supplier, but do you know who their suppliers are? These are your Tier 2 and Tier 3 suppliers. A problem with a raw material provider you've never even heard of can stop your supplier, which then stops you. Also, even with many suppliers, bad teamwork can cause big issues. Slow replies to quality problems, not sharing data on inventory, or unclear communication about production schedules can all slow down the entire supply chain. When a problem happens, a weak relationship makes it much harder to fix quickly. You spend time arguing instead of working together. Look at this map. It illustrates the risk of single sourcing. If a key factory, like this hypothetical microchip factory, goes down due to an unexpected event, it can quickly impact multiple assembly plants that rely on it. This creates a ripple effect, grinding production to a halt across the supply chain. This expert insight reinforces that relying on a single supplier for a critical component is a major risk that can halt your entire operation. Building resilience means proactively finding backup suppliers. To quickly summarize Lesson 2, we discussed the careful balancing act between just-in-case and just-in-time inventory, weighing their costs and risks. We explored the logistics labyrinth, highlighting the visibility black hole and the challenges of the last mile. And we uncovered the dangers of the supplier weak link, especially single sourcing and the need for deeper supplier visibility. In our next lesson, we will tackle technology and data gaps, and then put it all together to build a truly resilient supply chain. Welcome back to our final lesson in this series. We've covered the new normal of disruption, forecasting challenges, inventory balancing acts, logistics, and supplier risks. Now we're bringing it all together by looking at the technology and data gap, and then, most importantly, how to build a resilient supply chain. Our goal here is to explain how outdated systems and poor data quality are not just technical problems, but are root causes that magnify every other supply chain challenge. Then, we will guide you on building a more resilient supply chain by focusing your efforts on 3 key areas: increasing visibility, improving agility, and strengthening collaboration. Many companies operate with siloed systems. This is like different departments trying to build a car together, but none of them are sharing the blueprints. As you can see in this infographic, the procurement team uses one system, the warehouse team another, and sales a third. These systems don't talk to each other. Information has to be manually transferred, which is slow and leads to errors. You never have a single accurate view of what's happening across your supply chain. Expert insights confirm that system integration is a foundational step towards achieving true supply chain visibility. This leads us directly to the garbage in, garbage out problem. Every single challenge we've discussed so far is made worse by bad data. Data quality is not just a technical issue, it is the very foundation of every decision you make. The concept is simple: garbage in, garbage out. If you feed bad data into your processes, you will get bad results. An inaccurate demand forecast is often caused by incomplete historical sales data. A logistics delay becomes a crisis when your tracking data is wrong. You can't manage supplier performance if your data on their delivery times is inconsistent. A simple error, like an incorrectly entered customer address in the sales system, guarantees a failed delivery, wasted shipping costs, and an angry customer. Poor data quality magnifies every other problem you have. Now for the good news: building a more resilient supply chain. We've seen that disruptions are not going away. They are a permanent feature of the modern business world. The goal is not to create a perfect, unbreakable supply chain. That is impossible. The goal is to build a resilient one. A resilient supply chain is one that can bend without breaking and recover quickly when problems occur. This is what the experts call a strategic imperative in today's environment. To build resilience, you can focus your efforts on 3 key areas. This is a simple framework any supply chain professional can use. Let's look at those areas. As you can see in this infographic, the 3 pillars of resilience are: first, increase visibility. Work to get better data and connect your systems. You can't solve problems you can't see. Second, improve agility. Create flexible processes that let your team change direction quickly when a disruption happens. This means having backup plans and empowered teams. And third, strengthen collaboration. Build stronger, more transparent relationships with your key suppliers and internal teams. When a crisis hits, you need to work together. So, how do you get started building resilience? Don't try to solve everything at once. Start small. Pick the one challenge from this guide that causes the most pain for your team right now. Use a risk audit checklist, like the one in the document's appendix, to start a conversation about how you can improve. That is your first step toward building a more resilient supply chain. Remember the key point about the interconnectedness of these challenges from our content plan? Addressing one area, like data quality, will have positive ripple effects across others. Let's recap the main points we've covered in this lesson. We learned that siloed systems and poor data quality are critical issues that magnify all other supply chain challenges. We then explored the goal of building a resilient supply chain, one that can bend without breaking. Finally, we introduce the three pillars of resilience: increasing visibility, improving agility, and strengthening collaboration. Thank you for joining us on this journey to understand and overcome common challenges in supply chain management. We hope these lessons help you turn your biggest problems into your greatest strengths.